Hello folks, so this month, as ever, we're bringing you archaeological news from around the world.
Yeah, we are. We've got some fantastic discoveries this month actually. We're from Mexico, Ireland, France, Israel, China, and we're catching up with our friend Bruce Bradley, Professor Bruce Bradley over in Colorado to find out what he's been up to. You can't really get much more around the world than that, can you?
No, you can't really. And what else have we got? We'll be going out and about again to show you a few places that you've probably never heard of before. And, who's going to be our new Stonehead of the month? I'm afraid you'll have to wait till a bit later on to find that out.
And, of course, we will finish the show with something a little whimsical.
Rather a lot to get through, so we better get cracking. Mind you, on the other hand, before we do, as we're recording this, we're fast approaching the 20,000 subscriber number on YouTube. And by the time you're watching this, I fully expect that we've passed that number. So thank you to all of you that have subscribed. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. So anyway, having said that, let's get cracking now, shall we? So what's first up in the news, Rupert?
First up, major discovery in Mexico. It's a team led by Dr. Cyprian Ardelian from the University of Zacatecas in Mexico. They have found nearly 2,000 stone tools embedded in a matrix that they have dated to between 25 and 33,000 years old. That's pushing back the history of humans in the Americas around 15,000 years. Yeah. That's almost doubling the length of time that humans have been thought to have been in the Americas.
So should we just take a moment there?
I think we should.
To just ponder on that. Doubling the length of time that humans have been thought to have been in the Americas. It is just major, and I can't help but think that that's maybe going to ruffle a few feathers, perhaps.
I do think so. It's huge. Excavations have been going on it's the Chiquihuite cave. I think I've got that right. In central Mexico. Excavations have been going on there since 2012. So the publication of this paper is the culmination of just a massive amount of work. Now, intriguingly, of all the tools found, only 239 of them were deeply embedded in the oldest layers. And Dr. Ardelian believes that shows that this wasn't a permanent dwelling, but probably a seasonal shelter with people coming and going over long periods of time.
Did you know that the media have been referring to this as a hotel, as a prehistoric hotel?
Of course they have. What can you say? But now, obviously, the findings have caused a lot of controversy. Well, they would, wouldn't they? So it's going to be interesting to see what people are saying over the next few weeks. But maybe we should try to get Dr. Ardelian on for an interview to tell us more about the research.
Well, what would be interesting also is get Dr. Ardelian and his professor on for a elongated interview about this, because his professor happens to be, that he did his PhD under, was Professor Bruce Bradley.
He was.
Later on. Anyway, moving on. That is a very good idea. Meanwhile, this news is that a huge complex of enclosures and mounds have been found in Navan in County Armagh in Ireland. Teams from Queen's University Belfast and the University of Aberdeen have been working together using various ground-penetrating techniques. And we've got an interview coming up with a guy responsible in this part of the world, at least for
that's
developing
true too, yes.
ground-penetrating techniques. Vince Gaffney. We've got an interview with him coming up soon, so watch out for that. Anyway, the surveys have revealed a remarkable group of monuments which they think are Iron Age. But true to form, without so much as a spade being put in the ground, they have announced that this is a major religious site. In fact, Dr. Paddy Gleeson from the Belfast team said they are ritual buildings constructed to be temples.
He did
anyway,
say.
Regardless of premature interpretations, did you write that, Rupert?
I'm sorry I did.
It is certainly true that this is a significant find. 2 figures of 8 buildings in a huge figure of 8 enclosure. The scans also suggest that these could be palisaded, i.e. they're lined or bordered by massive timber posts. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, that will be a very costly excavation project. So let's hope they can manage to get the necessary funding so we can find out what's hiding in the earth there.
Yeah. It is amazing discovery, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I've got one here. This is another pushing back the boundaries piece, and this time it's about string.
Yay, string! We love string.
Yeah, string. Some of you may have seen in the news last year, actually, that evidence had been found for 13,800-year-old rope in France.
Well, we did a piece about it, didn't we?
Indeed, we did do a piece about it. Yeah. And this discovery from the French National Centre for Scientific Research is more rope. And the thing is, well, it's string, really, string or thread. And this time it's the work of Neanderthals found in a cave in the Ardèche region of southern France. And really, this is a testament to the skills of the researchers, because every artefact the team find, they examine under the microscope. I'll say that again. Every single thing that they find, they examine under the microscope. If it's a relevant piece, they can see that a tiny piece of flint has been worked, they look at it under the microscope. Yeah. And on one small piece of flint, they found a tiny, beautifully preserved piece of cordage. It's 6 millimeters long and 0.5 millimeter wide. So, hats off to them for spotting that. But it's dated to a staggering 40,000 years old. Now, it's important to remember here, this is the work of Neanderthals, who are always considered to be considerably less sophisticated than Homo sapiens. But this is a finely braided piece of thread made from tree fibres.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonder why we do that. I mean, it's another conversation entirely why we tend to, or historically, we've denigrated Neanderthals. But this is extraordinary, fantastic find. And using the word find is interesting. It's so often used. And just to, reiterate what, you've just said as well, that using that word find doesn't do service to the actual finding work, the actual digging, the actual excavating that goes on, because it has to go on at such a granular, painstaking level to enable people back, looking at stuff under microscopes and analysing stuff, to be able to extricate this kind of detail. It just speaks to the work that field archaeologists do. Just thought I'd mention that anyway. But as you say, I bet it's fantastic. And it takes our evidence for cordage from 14 to 40,000 years in a matter of months.
It does. Except I'm going to upset it again now, because then another discovery was made in Israel. And more or less at the same time, this discovery was made in Israel. And it makes that last discovery seem almost recent. This is a team led by archaeologist Daniela Bar-Joseph Meyer from Tel Aviv University. And they found a number of naturally perforated shells. So, shells that have just had holes worn in them from movement of water or whatever. Anyway, the thing is that these shells were discovered beneath some human burials in the Kavzeh cave in northern Israel. And they had marks around the holes which indicated that they had been strung. Now, the cord itself is long gone, long perished, but But they looked at the holes, and analysis showed that if you arranged them as if they were a necklace, then the other marks on the shells all coincided with where the marks would have been as if they'd been on a necklace, and they were banging against each other when they were being worn. That's an astonishing matching up of the marks on the shells. But the thing is that they've been dated to a minimum 120,000 years old.
Oh my goodness. And do you know what? You talking about that bit of cordage and that and those shells banging against each other, it just struck me that you really don't get that kind of humanizing of an artifact that may have been around somebody's neck or on somebody's chest. That banging together of the shells, the idea of movement going on, it so humanizes it. And then from 120,000 years ago,
staggering, isn't it? You're absolutely right. It's when it becomes personal that everything changes. Yeah. So, what? We're just illustrating it, aren't we? Really amazing diversity of archaeological research going on around the world. So, right, that said, I'm taking us right over to China now, where a 3,200-year-old Bronze Age settlement has been discovered on the Silk Road in present-day Xinjiang. Archaeologists found the remains of the ancient community almost by accident when they were working on a group of 30 2,000-year-old tombs. 30 2,000-year-old tombs? 30 tombs of 2,000 years in age.
What?
Yes, 30 tombs of 2,000 years in age.
There you go. I didn't misread. The older settlement was found about 50 centimetres beneath the tombs and is fairly extensive. It's about 500 square metres and it contains a number of buildings. They've uncovered lots of pieces of ceramics and animal bones, including cows, sheep, horses and antelopes. But it just shows how the smallest detail can make such a huge difference. The Bronze Age site was only discovered because someone noticed that the soil around one of the graves was different from the others.
There you go. Hawkeye.
That one's a work in progress, and we'll see what emerges. And that, for now, is the news.
So, romping on. It's time for prehistory people. Yes, romping on. It's time for prehistory people. When we take a look behind the scenes to have a look, see what archaeologists and prehistorians are doing out of the public eye.
So it occurred to us that we hadn't spoken to our friend Professor Bruce Bradley for a while, since we interviewed him back at the beginning of the year.
It's true. It was when he was just disappearing to do some field work in South America.
Yeah, Bruce is a world-renowned experimental archaeologist, and he's a lithics expert. His flint napping has to be seen to be believed.
It really does.
And he's worked all over the world, from Crow Canyon to Kazakhstan and Alaska down to Arizona. So we called him up at his home in Colorado to ask him what he's up to at the moment.
Bruce, it's good to see you, and thank you so much for joining us again. It's been ages since we spoke. The last time we spoke was you were just about to head off to South America, which was way back at the beginning of the year. So how have you been? What are you up to? What's taking up your time? What's really firing you up at the moment? Just, what's happening for you at the moment?
Well, there's several different things. I didn't make my trips to South America. I had 2 trips. Managed to leave Uruguay 2 days before the whole place shut down for COVID. But had successful trips in both cases, both to Brazil and to Uruguay, working with colleagues on different projects down there.
Right.
And with my colleague in Uruguay, Rafael Suarez, I'm doing a lot of work now with him from Colorado, and that involves a lot of flint napping. We're doing replica work on a particular topic and material called fishtail culture, etc., which is one of the earliest in the southern cone in South America. And I've now got over 139 replicas that I've done of those particular things.
The purpose of doing the replica is so that you can get as close as you can to replicating the style. So you've got a deeper understanding of what they. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's not just the style; it's the whole flaking process.
Yeah.
And we've got the archaeological materials that we're comparing it to, and we keep sort of tweaking the process. And it's really, really interesting because it looks the same, like they're doing the same thing all the way from Central America to the southern cone of South America at the same time. I mean, down to the details of how they're selecting the platforms for their flakes, etc. So it's very, very much like Clovis in that respect. And it is a fluted point as well.
And what sort of period are we talking about here?
Pardon?
What sort of period are we talking about here?
We're talking about 12,000 years ago.
Wow, okay.
12,500 years ago. But it's hemisphere wide, or well, almost hemisphere wide anyhow. It goes from, probably it's related to some materials in Florida and goes all the way down to the southern tip of Argentina.
Wow.
So, and seems to be virtually the same thing all the way. So it's a real curiosity again. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun. The project I'm doing in Brazil is related to that. It's a little different, but it's related to that as well. And then, of course, I'm continuing to do excavations on my site here, the Chaco Outlier Great House site.
Yes.
We work.
Is your home near the site that you're working on?
Yeah, we're about 15, 20 minutes drive away.
Perfect.
And we own the site and the property, so it's at our disposal.
Yeah.
And that's turned out to be really interesting. We've got a very small crew of volunteers that works with us. We work 4 days a week. We're now not working. July and August we've taken off because it's too hot, really. Yeah. And why go out and hurt ourselves, So, but we're going to start again in September and work September, October on that. And in the meantime, we do all the processing and laboratory work, et cetera, as we go along.
Sure.
So. That's keeping me really busy. I'm going to be.
You do involve yourself in the processing itself, I know.
Oh yeah, sure. We have one day a week with our volunteers come over to our house and we do washing and cataloging and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm in the process of being appointed visiting professor at Jilin University in North China. And I'm planning to get back there. I'm going to be doing this fall. I'm going to be doing some online lectures for them, and then hopefully next year I'll be able to get back and do another workshop. So
okay, fine. So you're just slowing things down a bit.
I'm being more selective.
Oh, that's right.
Doing what's fun.
Amazing. That's extraordinary. So, wow. So, in fact, since we last spoke, you've just been busier than ever then, really?
Yeah, pretty much. But then also working on gardens and doing things around the place and enjoying life and, whatever. Being retired,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, who wants to retire? Yes, that's just no good at all. So, okay, so that's amazing. So, you're based in Colorado. You're staying in Colorado then until foreseeable, right?
Sure. This is our home, and we have family here. So
yeah. Well, it's always fantastic to catch up with you. And what can I say? I think just keep us posted. Let us know what's happening down there. We're still hoping that we're going to get over and visit at some point. But,
I hope you will too. When it's possible again.
Yes.
And I think, if we can talk to you again, because it's important, because we've got a whole new raft of listeners and our audience has grown so hugely. And I think more than 50% of them are over your side of the Atlantic now.
Yeah.
So keeping people informed and up to date with what you're up to is from our point of view, is just fantastic. It keeps our feet on the ground.
Certainly does.
No, I enjoy it. I really enjoy your work and what we do, and why not?
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, listen, we'll keep in touch, and
please do. I get busy and don't think to contact you, so feel free to contact me anytime.
Thanks so much, Bruce. Well, you take good care.
Nice
see you
seeing
again soon.
Nice talking with you.
Cheers
Ciao.
now. Bye.
Okay, moving on. Now, some of you might remember that last month, Michael took you down the road to have a look at some of the prehistory on his own doorstep. But
Today we're going a bit further afield. I'm heading due west. The odd thing is, although I can step out of my back door, and be amongst Neolithic monuments, they're not the sort that were visible above ground. And although quite nearby, 20 minutes drive away, I've got the Rollright stones, which is a very nice thing to have. I've got to go quite a bit further afield to get anywhere that's got anything showing above ground, really. Anything significant in terms of megalithic sites. So it's a good 2 hours drive to where I'm taking you. And where am I taking you? Herefordshire, and a Neolithic chambered tomb called Arthur's Stone. Well, that's nice, isn't it? Wow. Here we are. Oh, glad I made the effort. Trick is, I'm going to spend the night here, and tomorrow we'll take some some cinematic footage to make into a little filmette. But I'll tell you more about Arthur's Stone and about something else that's actually nearby that's very exciting, almost within sight of here, I think. But I'll leave that till tomorrow. All right, well, here we are. Made it. Arthur's Stone is named, of course, for King Arthur and has been since the 13th century, we're told. As far as its actual origins in prehistory, there seems to be little to be said, aside from the fact that it's been dated to around 3500 BC and has been classified among the 7 Cotswold-type tombs. As such, a little imagination is required when looking at it. We need to be thinking long barrow. The covering mound would have been about 80 foot long and 30 foot wide, maybe about half the size of Bayless Knapp, but nevertheless similarly proportioned. And viewed that way, it's clear that the remains we can see here today are a very much diminished representation of the original monument. All we can see really is the burial chamber, not that there's any record of human remains having been found here, but then again, with such a disturbed site, expectations of any finds at all would be very slim indeed. What remains, to my eye at least, is simply that which is not easily portable, I'm afraid. 9 stones supported the 25-ton capstone, which, as you can see, is now in 3 pieces. However, Arthur's Stone does have its own distinct peculiarities. The outlying upright stone is what remains of a false portal stone at the fulcrum of what would have been the forecourt. The entrance was not from the forecourt at the eastern end, but these stones here tell us that the entrance was into the side of the tomb from the south. Interpretations on a postcard, please. On the other hand, what Arthur's Stone lacks in archaeology, it makes up for in legend. Apparently, King Arthur was said to have killed a giant here, and if proof were needed, he cracked the stone as he fell and left the marks from his elbows in it as he did so. A 15th century chronicle tells us that during the time of the Wars of the Roses, to cut a long story short, it was deemed that a quarrel between a knight named Turberville and Thomas ap Griffith, father of Sir Rhys ap Thomas, who helped Henry VII to the throne, should be settled here on this spot. The champions met here accordingly, and on first pass Turberville was unhorsed, broke his back, and died. In September 1645, King Charles gathered his army here, and allegedly dined off the stone. Even more recently, it is said that C.S. Lewis took much inspiration from the Wyre Valley and the Golden Valley in Herefordshire, and that the broken stone upon which Aslan the lion is sacrificed in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe is based on Arthur's stone. Sorry about the plot spoiler there. And that's about it for Arthur's stone. But I want to quickly tell you about something else that's only about a mile away. And from a prehistory point of view, it's absolutely fascinating. But it looks to me as if actually showing it you anything might involve a little trespassing. Not that I advise it, but it's not far. Wish me luck. Oh, seem to have made it. It's only a few yards this way. Hopefully you can see that patch of earth behind me in the field. This is Dorston Hill. And what you're seeing there is the remains of an excavation, archaeological excavation, that took place quite recently, started in 2013. And best thing is if I return to the studio, as it were, to tell you about it. The excavation, led by Professor Julian Thomas, happened because of an earlier discovery of a huge amount of flints and other finds in this field. The dig revealed 3 long mounds aligned end to end. The middle mound was composed of burnt clay and timber and had a timber palisade. In the eastern mound, bones were found with a long timber chamber built between 2 huge post holes, and there were stone chambers with cremated remains built into the side of the mound. In 2015, the western mound was found to contain the post hole indications of a timber building nearly 100 foot long. But what is extraordinary, and hopefully we'll be able to explore the details of this a bit more fully in a later programme, is that the evidence here tells us that a large timber dwelling dating to nearly 6,000 years ago was burnt to the ground, and that funerary monuments of stone and timber were created over the remains. Here, essentially, we have barrows built over houses. In Professor Thomas's own words, the halls of the living became the halls of the dead. A totally unique sight, with so much more to go into. And as far as interest is concerned about stuff going on under the ground here, I hope you find that absolutely fascinating. All right. With that, seriously, back to the studio.
Yes, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time for
Stonehead of the month.
Stonehead of the month.
Stonehead of the month.
Stonehead of the month. It's the Blue Peter badge of archaeology. And for the first time ever, this month's Stonehead is also providing this month's Whimsy.
And whilst he knew he was coming on the show, we hadn't told him that he was going to be our Stonehead of the month. I stumbled across Seamus Carey quite by chance when he published, and some of you may have already been aware of this, so forgive us, but he published an absolutely brilliant music video, all written, performed and filmed by him. Yeah?
It's too good. It's too good. Michael called me and he said, you've got to have a look at this. And it's just a treat. So we thought it would be rude not to share it with you. So let's have a chat with the man himself, and then we'll show you the video afterwards.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. So, welcome, Seamus. Welcome to the Prehistory Show. Thank you so
good to have
much
you
for
on.
coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That's quite all right. Now, for people that don't know, and a few of you will, the reason we have Seamus on, because we came across, I can't remember how it came across our bows, but there is a brilliant film out there called I Wish I Was a Standing Stone. More of that anon. But Seamus, you think you've come on here for a brief chat about the film, and and to find out about yourself and all that. To elucidate people about where you're from and what you do and all the rest of it. But no. Today, you are our Stonehead of the month.
Yes, you are.
Wow.
You join the elite club of owner of the Blue Peter badge of archaeology.
No way.
Hold on, let's see if I can.
I mean, it's
That's
out
very
of,
out
it's so
of focus, Michael.
It's so out of focus, it could be a bottle top at the moment.
Hold on a second. I can do it. I can do this.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
That's
Beautiful.
the one.
Isn't that a thing of glory? I can't bring it any closer, I'm afraid.
Yes.
There we are.
It's only the special people that get these.
Well, thank you very much.
That
Hey,
is yours, your special prehistory guys badge. How are you feeling now?
I'm delighted, actually, yeah. I feel like I'm in the cult I've always wanted to be in.
Welcome.
too good,
No.
too good.
But to illustrate why Seamus is such a deserved winner of the Prehistory Guys Stonehead of the Month award, we think it only fitting to show the film. I wish it was a standing stone. So, roll VT.
I wish I was a standing stone, standing tall and all alone in the middle of the mall. No one knows what you're for. I wish I was a standing stone, standing tall and all alone in the middle of the field. Your secrets are concealed. Stories of our past. Now and again a German tourist will pass and take a photograph. Stones have stood and stones will stand. Who erected you in this weird and ancient land? Was it gods or was it man?
Back in the room. Seamus, it's a joy. It's a joy. It was Mike that put me onto it first, and I laughed like a drain. It was just genius. And I had so many questions. First question, the costume.
Yes.
Tell us about the costume.
A lot of people have been asking about this costume. There's a widely spread misconception that it's a sleeping bag. So I want to kind of get that out of clear the air. It's not a sleeping bag.
It's a custom build then.
It is actually, and I can get on to sort of why I went about it in a minute. But I made it out of two duvets, two single duvets sewn together because I don't think actually I wouldn't be able to move about enough in a sleeping bag. So it's two duvets sewn together, and then I mixed latex with paint to get a quite nice rubbery finish. And what was also funny is I'm sure you guys do appreciate this, but it's the colour of a stone is far more complex than you might imagine.
It's hugely
It really
cool.
is.
So, I painted it grey and a bit white and stuff. And then we went out to start filming it and realised that some have got loads of yellow and loads of red and a bit of copper coming in. And then, of course, not to mention the moss and the lichen. So I would come home and get a toothbrush and that technique where you can flick paint so it gets all speckly.
Yeah.
So if you had the chance to get close to my standing stone outfit, I think you'd really dig the colour palette.
It's all in the detail. It's all in the details.
It really is.
It makes all the difference. But hey, what about yourself though? I mean, we know nothing, next to nothing about you. We know you're in Cornwall, but what do you do, Seamus?
Plug your website.
Well, I am a man that makes music stuff. That's the kind of the general term, and lots of things fit into that. So I started off. I didn't manage to finish any formal education or A levels or degree, but I kind of knew that I wanted to get into music for theatre at a very young age. I grew up watching lots of theatre because my dad was involved in a company in Cornwall called Knee High, and I sort of grew up watching that and very much within that world. And I don't know whether the reputation spreads across the rest of the country, but in Cornwall there's a great kind of tradition of outdoor theatre and quite kind of some, especially in the 90s, it was very cutting edge, I think, for outdoor theatre, and lots of
is it the Minack Theatre?
The Minack, yes.
Minack, yes, theatre.
Yes.
Is that still going?
It is. In fact, they were in the news a couple of weeks ago because they were the first outdoor venue to be able to open again. They were sort of they were chomping at the bit to open up. Yeah. And they've obviously had to adapt their season quite drastically to sort of one-man shows and double acts. But that's a great place. You've not been there?
I haven't.
No, never.
You'd love it.
Yes.
Come down and let me know.
My image is the Menack Theatre is cut into the back into the sort of cliff face, and it overlooks the sea. So it's an extraordinary location. I'll see if I can grab a photograph and put it on the screen so people understand that. Yeah,
we're planning a trip to Cornwall. We'll come visit you. But
great.
But,
absolutely. Yeah. So how come? I wish I was a standing stone.
Well, so. That's the main thing I do is theatre and music, and I run a choir, and most recently I've been a piano tuner. And just before lockdown, I made a show called Pagan Pandemonium, and it was a sort of I became quite fascinated. I moved away from Cornwall for a few years, and I was touring a lot, and I toured a lot around America, and I found myself on the 1st of May, for example, looking at my Twitter feed, and a local Cornish ritual or festival, a May Day festival, would pop up, and it would be a shot of Padstow May Day, or possibly Helston Flora Dance, or there's quite a few things that happen, and it made me feel quite homesick. And then when I shared it with someone that I was working with, they just looked upon it like some sort of mad, abstract performance art that they'd never heard of. And I found myself in that position, really, really kind of realised that I'd taken for granted all the weird and wacky customs that you find in Cornwall and across the UK. So when I came back to Cornwall, and I moved back here 2 years ago, I decided to really invest a bit of time in sort of going around and partaking and witnessing all those seasonal rituals that you find throughout the county. So I was inspired by that. But I was also inspired by sort of wacky, mad, often Japanese game shows that were quite big in the 90s. Takeshi's Castle. Did you ever see that? Takeshi's Castle?
One?
No, I didn't, but it kind of all makes sense now.
Yeah, Takeshi's Castle was sort of ripped off by the British eventually with that show, I think it was Total Wipeout. Where, sort of jumping on big rafts across a swimming pool, and also it's a knockout as well. That BBC program. So I kind of, because when you look at the cheese rolling in Somerset, right, and they roll that cheese down the hill, and all those guys and women run down it like maniacs. I thought, what is the difference between that and a sort of bonkers game, Japanese game show? And is there a way to kind of mix the two? So, in January this year, I made a sort of work in progress experience of that show with a bit of Arts Council funding, and I toured it round village halls in Cornwall, and I was very passionate that the gigs were free and for the public, and you try and get a sort of wide range of audience as possible. It kind of worked. There was a lot to be kind of honed and perfected, but the essence was a sort of mad show where the audience could get up on stage. We would get people. We would teach them the games there on the spot, and so in a way it was a one-man show. But then everybody would get on stage, and at the end there would be we talk about rituals and what they mean to people and why we do them, and then at the end we would make a new one. And the one in that show was kind of based on the absurd, so we ended up praying to a goldfish, and we did a big sort of a big maypole dance. We got everybody singing and dancing, and then they all went, "All hail the goldfish!" So within that, there was naturally a sketch about standing stones, and we very quickly ran to the shop and bought some cheap duvets, and we made these ridiculous outfits where people's heads would pop up, and so we'd take sort of innocent victims from the audience and get them to dress up as a standing stone. And inspired by the legend of the Merry Maidens in Cornwall, found not far from St Buryan, because the story is that they were turned into stone because they were dancing on the Sabbath. Yeah. So the idea is we got the audience to close their eyes, and then we dressed these people up in standing stone outfits. And then when we said open your eyes, we said imagine that these are the Merry Maidens, and if we're very lucky, we might see them dance for us. So it became a sort of, you know, Strictly Come Dancing meets Merry Maidens experience. And you know, and we played different genres of music, and it got more and more, you know, frenzied. And at the end, they were dancing to ABBA's Dancing Queen, and everyone had to vote who their favourite Merry Maiden was. So that's where that's a bit of a long explanation, but that's where it came from. Yeah. And lockdown happened, and you know, 6 months of touring disappeared, and I was sat in this shed in Camborne, and I thought I'd love to sort of explore that sketch a bit further, because we never quite finished it. And I had written this song. I'd started writing this song, and we ran out of time. The show was too long, and we had to start cutting things as you do. Yeah. And that song kind of, you know, found itself on the cutting room floor, as you'd say. And I thought to myself, you know, why don't I try and dig that out, finish it, probably give it some better lyrics, and resurrect it as a music video.
Yeah. Well, it's a piece of genius. I wanted to ask you, because I love clever lyrics, and the thing that really got me was when you're talking about Menenthal, and you say that it can cure all illness if you pass your children through this. And it was the use of the word illness. I thought, that's clever. How long did it take you to come up with that solution to a lyric problem?
Do you know what? I actually thought, when I wrote that, I thought, I don't think I'm going to get away with this one. And it's a few people have brought that lyric up in particular. There was a few versions, because actually the Menenthal, if you go through it, definitely cures rickets. So I was trying to find a rhyme with rickets, but that's quite hard. Illness.
Well done. Anyway, look, here's the thing. I know from experience that it's impossible to control a drone from within a duvet.
Yes.
Yeah.
You had help.
I did have help. So I ended up being locked down in a very lovely way with my girlfriend for about 4 months, and she came out to live with me in Camborne, where I live. And so it started off as a very lovely sort of project between the two of us, where I said, would you be up filming me just for a few minutes? And we got quite into getting up at sunrise. So the very first shot you see where I become real, that was shot at sunrise. So we'd go up there and have a flask and a scone or something for breakfast, and then we'd have this romantic moment, and then she turned around and I was there in the costume going, I'm ready. and fair enough, she did start to get quite bored of that, and the romanticism kind of wore off, and then a friend of mine called Danny North, who is a brilliant, very very well acclaimed music photographer who's recently moved to Cornwall, he got in touch and said, do you fancy some drone shots? So that was, you know, we just did that in an evening, and it was a bit of fun, and very nice of him. I don't know if you saw it, but one of my favourite places in Cornwall is the Gwennet Pit, which is the sort of
that location
Methodist preaching pit.
Okay, yeah.
I hadn't seen it until your video, because I sent you a message asking you where it was.
Yes, right. So that's a great. I mean, that's not particularly old, you know. It's sort of a couple 100 years old, but it gets referenced a lot in Aphex Twin's music, and a lot of his music videos have sort of got pulsating, computerized versions.
It's a really useful visual device. That
sure. and it looks a bit like a UFO landing station, and you can't deny that.
You cannot.
No, you can't.
Seamus, congratulations on a magnificent achievement, fully deserved Stonehead of the Month. Rupert, is there anything else you want to
No, just
grill
a
Seamus with
just
before we...
a big congratulations. We think it's wonderful. We will do our best to come and meet you when we come down to Cornwall.
Yeah.
And I think it's only fair to say we should say our goodbyes and play out the show. Should we not?
Absolutely. Yes. We've got a 2-for-1 here, or is it 1-for-2? 2-for-1, because normally we sort of have a bit of whimsy here, but your film is a little bit of whimsy.
You're the whimsy as well.
So your film gets to play out the rest of this edition of the Prehistory Show. Thank you so much for being with us, and maybe we'll have a longer conversation at some other time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks
In
for
the
watching,
meantime-
folks, and we'll see you again next time.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I wish I was the man and tall, uniquely shaped with a donut hole. It has the power to cure all illness if you pass your children through this. I wish I was a Lanyon coit, smooth and flat without a point, stood against the Cornish sky. You're on the cover of The Reason Why. Stonehenge, was it for pagan sacrifice? These days, it's rather overpriced, although the gift shop is quite nice. Avebury is a Neolithic site, but maybe the stones come alive at night as a spaceship flies inside.
So that's it for this month, folks. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below to help the Prehistory Guys channel to grow.
Yes, and don't forget, if you want to help us to produce more content and get all of your content without any advertising, come and join us on our Patreon page for as little as $1 a month and get a bunch of extra perks along with it.
Not to mention maybe getting your hands on one of these.
So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
See you, folks.
Bye-bye. Bye.
No one knows